You ever have one of those weeks where you wake up thinking, this is it, I finally made it, and by Friday you're knee-deep in HOA nonsense lawyers and what feels like psychological warfare over 10 lousy inches of dirt? Yeah, that happened to me. I bought myself 4 acres of raw desert right on the edge of a fancy HOA development outside Mesa. Thought I was living the dream. Instead, I ended up fighting a platinum blonde warlord in heels in a suit armed with nothing but my blueprints, a stubborn streak, and a whole lot of caffeine. See, I didn't buy this land by accident. I knew exactly where the boundary was, walked it with a GPS 3 maps, and even dragged a real-life land use attorney along for the trip before I signed the deed. I wasn't buying into their HOA fantasy land, no sir. I wanted my own kingdom. The plot I snagged hadn't seen a fence, a sewer line, or a hint of life in years. Just a faded for sale sign flopped over like it had lost hope. But to me it was a blank canvas, a place I could build sharp, off-grid modern something that'd stand out against all their adobe and terracotta cookie-cutter nonsense. I'm an architect, used to be city zoning council, so I know how the sausage gets made. I started the build low-key. Small crew, quiet mornings. Nothing flashy, just ribs of steel poking out of the dust solar panels ready to soak up that Arizona sun. For a while, nobody from the HOA cared. Not until the day I looked up from my coffee and saw her platinum hair-pressed blazer heels crunching over gravel, standing across my temporary chain like a corporate vulture. Didn't even say hi, just stared at my steel frame like it had personally offended her. Finally, she walks over all CEO posture and goes, "You must be the builder," with a voice that says trespasser. Nope. I tell her I'm the owner and the architect. You could see her mentally marking me as public enemy number 1. Turns out she's Karen Vanderbrook, the president of the HOA next door. She tells me, we try to maintain a certain aesthetic integrity in the area. I just smiled, nodded, said, good to know. I'm not in your area. She glances back at her gated kingdom like she's hoping the cavalry's coming. Your property is highly visible from several of our lots. Our residents have concerns. They're welcome to blink, I say, and walk off. Thought that'd be the end of it? Wrong. A week later, thick envelope from the HOA, full-on color renderings of my house, only they'd photoshopped it to look like something out of a Santa Fe tourist brochure. Plus an invitation to join the HOA as a voluntary adjacent member. Yeah, that's not happening. I ignore it. Suddenly her white Escalades parked suspiciously close to my line. She starts showing up with consultants. Caught her taking photos of my porta potty like OSHA's gonna bust me for using the wrong shade of blue. Then 2 months in, just as my crew's finishing the roof trusses, construction fires up next door. Not an existing house. No, Karen herself bought the lot right on my border and broke ground. And she wasn't building some modest ranch either. No, she's putting up a 3-story Mediterranean castle with floor-to-ceiling windows, balconies, and a turret aimed right at my bedroom. I fly the drone, run the numbers, and I kid you not, her wall is going up exactly 10 inches from my line. Not a foot, not even a foot and a half. 10 inches. It was like she was flipping me the bird in architectural language. Now, I'm not a yeller, I'm a documenter. I run drone flights, log measurements, overlay blueprints, stack up the evidence. 6 gigantic windows stare straight into my master suite, and her gutters dump rainwater right into my foundation trench. If you don't know Arizona, let me tell you, rain doesn't ask permission out here. It just wrecks stuff when it finally shows up. I do the right thing, call county inspection, hand over blueprints. Video the works. Inspector shrugs, says, looks like it's inside her parcel. If she's got a variance, not your business, sir. A variance. Yeah, granted, 2 weeks ago, HOA lobbied for a setback exception. That's when it hit me. Karen didn't just break the rules. She bent them with a wink and a handshake at the county clerk's office. So I keep stacking evidence. Geospatial sun shadow maps, drainage impact reports, camera logs, every encroachment, every light she points at my house. Then come the petty moves. Her stone planter, 2 inches on my side. Decorative gnome ditto. New path light aimed right into my guest room. Security camera, second floor black dome staring at my lot. Subtle, surgical, she's pushing, seeing if I'll snap. And the newsletter? Oh, that was rich. HOA puts out a September issue featuring an anonymous story about a non-member property causing community tension. Blurry photo. But if you know my build, you know it's me. I don't bite. I don't write back. Instead, I call an old city planning buddy Harrison zoning dispute legend. He tells me, only counts as a nuisance if you got footage. Oh, I do, I say. And a spectrometer reading. So when the meeting invite comes, I'm not surprised. Fancy envelope gold lettering like I'd won the lottery. They want to discuss my concerns at the HOA community hall. I show up early. Place smells like fake citrus and power trips. Karen's at the end of a mile-long table flanked by two guys legal and project coordination. They offer me $50,000 to let it slide. $50,000 for her turning my view into her living room. I slide the check back. I think we're done here. She sighs, warns me about how ugly things can get. I tell her, you built a surveillance tower in my face. This is the drama. Then it really goes sideways. A new fence inside my property, not on the line. Weird calls, hang-ups, even a voicemail with kids' voices and heavy breathing. I up my camera game, catch her contractors trespassing, vandalizing, even urinating on my plants. I document it all, back it up 3 times. Call Harrison. Time to go on offense. We start building a real case. Structural harm code violations, everything. And then the real twist, HOA files to make the 10-inch strip between our lots a public ecological corridor. Fancy language for I lose control over my own boundary. But they didn't know I'd found an old, never-revoked utility exclusion in county records from the 60s. I file for historical reactivation, kills their corridor. Harrison laughs. Karen's HOA lawyer calls the clerk to scream about sabotage. I bring in the big guns, a drainage engineer, surveyor, even a privacy consultant. Turns out Karen's wall is 9.5 inches from my line required is 5 feet. Her runoff's illegal, and her windows violate every privacy code in the book. Her next move. She makes it personal. Flyers on my gate smearing my name. HOA newsletter calls me a danger to kids. That's when I call a defamation lawyer. He looks at the flyer, says, let's gut them. Then come the floodlights, literally. 4 industrial-grade LEDs mounted on her house, set to trigger all-night blasting my bedroom with enough lumens to land a plane. I file a nuisance complaint, start building mirrored panels as solar mitigation. Reflect her own windows back at her artistic, legal, and let's be honest, petty in a way that felt so right. County loves it. HOA loses their mind, but too late, they can't touch it. Karen tries to sneak through a zoning amendment that would force me to harmonize my house with the HOA, even though I'm not a member. I catch it show up to the planning meeting and nuke it with a PowerPoint on zoning by proximity. They vote it down unanimously. At that point, I've had enough. I file a full lawsuit, structural encroachment, visual trespass, drainage violations, architectural overhangs, false filings, and defamation. $2 million in damages and a permanent architectural servitude, no more windows or cameras facing my land. Karen's countersuit accuses me of weaponized architecture and psychological destabilization via mirrored panels. I nearly choke on my coffee reading that. But then her own contractor comes forward, says on record she told them to build as close to his line as possible. If he blinks, pour concrete on his lawn. Another witness proves she illegally redirected runoff. The judge sets a trial. We come in with binders and drone footage. HOA comes in with, well, attitude. The evidence is brutal video of trespass foundation erosion emails showing they tried to pressure me, even a flyer calling me a threat to children. Their defense is that my mirrored panels are malicious. The judge's reply, this isn't group therapy. On the stand, Karen tries to play innocent, but Morales, my lawyer, hits her with her own words caught on tape. The courtroom goes silent. The ruling is harsh and beautiful, $2.8 million in damages, forced removal of her balconies and third-floor windows, no more cameras or floodlights, and a public apology from the HOA, read aloud and emailed to every resident. As the verdict's read, Karen sits like she's at her own funeral. A board member corners me outside, says they didn't know how bad it had gotten. HOA boots her as president the next month. Her house sits gutted for weeks, half-finished tarp flapping in the wind. I finish my house finally in peace. You want the lesson. It's not that you have to fight every battle. It's that sometimes standing your ground isn't about pride. It's about making sure power, arrogance, and backdoor politics don't steamroll what's right. If I'd rolled over, she'd have done it to the next guy and the next and the next. A year after I broke ground, I put up a small steel sign where her balcony used to loom. 10 inches of arrogance cost her millions. Think before you build. People noticed. Contractors, neighbors, even delivery guys. No one touched it, and you know what, I'd do it again. Because when someone tries to bulldoze your life, sometimes you just have to lay down a foundation and dare them to cross it. So let me throw this out there. Where do you draw the line? When does someone else's community standard become your private nightmare? Drop your thoughts, share your stories. Tell me if you've ever had to stand your ground when the odds were stacked against you. Because sometimes that's what real justice looks like.